Zani's banner is pretty much over, and she might have been the most controversial unit in the game, with wrong calculations, doom posting, as well as people in general just hating how dependent she is on Peeb. And while I was sitting and contemplating on whether I should pull Zani or not, I noticed how bad it would feel. I already have Jinshi, and I already have Phoebe. All I would get by pulling Zani is making my Phoebe a Zani slave who never gets to leave her side again. And that got me thinking, and the more I thought about it, the more I got the feeling that the issue isn't Zani, but that maybe it's Phoebe. You see, back in 1.4, when Kuro teased all the coming Rina Sita units, everyone was dying of hype for Zani. I, on the other hand, only had eyes for Phoebe, female blonde priestess that literally looks like the priestess from Goblin Slayer. I was hyped, and was 100% sure that she would be the next Shorekeeper level support, as it would just make sense with her design. So you can imagine my surprise when Kuro stepped on the stage and started talking about her kid and her being a Spectro-Frazzle main DPS. Like what? But hey, I didn't complain. More screen time for Peeb, so I'm happy. And that confession state might be for a future unit to allow a more dual DPS playstyle like with Changli Carlotta. But it was still weird to see that Phoebe's confession state would apply way more Frazzle stacks than the cap, and that it would significantly cut down her damage, when you consider that it was a sub-DPS mode. But that unit is out now, and she's just your regular hypercarry DPS. Her teammates prep the field for her, and then Zani ults and goes crazy. Pretty simple. And it's especially now that the more I think about Phoebe, the less sense her kit design makes. She's supposed to be a Spectro-Frazzle main DPS, like Zani, but unlike Zani, Phoebe has absolutely no actual interaction with that debuff. Zani can pop it and transform it into Heliacal Ember to then do more Nightfalls in her ult, while making that damage also count as Frazzle damage. She has direct and unique interactions with Frazzle that partially change how the entire mechanic works. What does Phoebe do? Nothing. She has dogshit multipliers that get increased significantly against enemies that are afflicted by Frazzle, but doesn't interact with the mechanic itself in any actual way. At this point, they should have allowed her to apply Frazzle herself consistently so that she would become a self-sufficient DPS that you could at least use with Changli, for example. And speaking about teammates, Phoebe is probably the only DPS that doesn't even have interactions with teammates. Rover applying Frazzle is not an interaction. We just don't have anyone else because Kuro refuses to give us a 4-star Spectro-Frazzle applier. As someone who has Phoebe, pulling Zani feels bad because I already have Jinshi and Phoebe. Getting Zani is only going to make Phoebe a Zani slave, who you never want to use as a main DPS again. I don't even think Phoebe has anything special about her, practically speaking, other than her super cool outro skill. Which brings me to the main point of this video and makes me wonder, did Kuro mess up Phoebe? Did they simply mess her kit up? If they made Peeb a Shorekeeper level support, it would have given us more diversity in that area, making less people feel like Shorekeeper is this absolute must-pull unit, since you could also just get Phoebe. Her design fits that role perfectly, and you could just make her a generic support like Shorekeeper who can be used with everyone, but on the side note also applies Frazzle, with her doing generic buffs instead of things like currently Spectro-Frazzle damage amplification. The overall damage level between Zani Phoebe would have gone down, and Zani could have gotten more buffs and potentially even more self-sufficiency in her own kit, while also making Phoebe still her best in slot support. People would pull Phoebe for her design or personality regardless, but now more people would pull Phoebe due to her being a great generic support, especially the people that started playing after Shorekeeper release. And Shorekeeper rerun wouldn't feel like a necessity anymore where you absolutely need to pull on it, even though you wanted to save for Zani, Ciaccona, Katefia or Looper. You could even keep her nuke outro skill. I mean, Shorekeeper has a nuke intro skill. The more I think about it, the more sense it would have made for Phoebe to be a Shorekeeper-like unit, and less people would have probably even complained about needing Phoebe for their Zani, due to her being a generic support who could have been deemed as a must-pull anyway, and used in more general places, just like Shorekeeper. And unlike now, pulling Zani would not have made your Phoebe a slave to her, and you could still use her pretty much everywhere. This is the first time where I feel like that Kuro heavily messed up a character's kit from a design perspective, when alternative option would have been healthier for Phoebe, Zani, as well as the entirety of Wuthering Waves as a game. But yeah, those are just some of my random thoughts that came to mind just before Ciaccona comes out. Let me know what you think about it, especially if you disagree and think that Phoebe's kit is perfectly fine and I'm crashing out over nothing. I would love to hear your opinion on that matter. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to like, subscribe and share this video, and I will see you in the next one.